Thanks for being here, Araz. Could you please tell us a little bit about what you know about your family's history before they were in Lebanon?
So my dad's side of the family is my dad's dad is from Aintab. My dad's mom is from Zaytun. My mom's dad is from Bahça, which I don't know where it is because it means village in Turkish. And my mom's mom is from Marash, so it's like a whole mix of a lot of strong, all these Armenian villages. I identify most as Aintabtsi. So there's a lot of stories from where they come from. Like we still have some papers of land that belongs to us in Aintab, and I think some in Marash as well. But the Aintab one has I'm the most I was the most impressed of, and yeah, that's it. But so there's this thing in Lebanon where they write your ethnicity on your ID card. And our ID card says Arman Adim, which means Old Armenian, which means before the genocide. So I was always very curious of knowing why is it like that? Because if we come from Aintab and Zaytun and all of that, was it during the genocide or was it before? Because during when Armenia was so big, it was up until Lebanon, up until the Levant, a lot of Armenians moved to Lebanon. And then it turns out that it had to be done for political reasons, because my family wanted to be Lebanese, because all of the Armenians that got to Syria and Lebanon after the genocide, they were first in Syria and then went to Lebanon. And if you wouldn't become Lebanese up until a certain point, you can't become Lebanese anymore, you stay Syrian. And my family wanted to become Lebanese, so I guess that's why they changed it. So yeah, so we could all be Lebanese. We did that, I think. Because to a certain point, I was always curious about where my family name comes from, Guidanian. There's no one else. There are family names like Boyajian, Magerditian, and stuff that is a big part. You can find a certain last name in any diaspora and Armenian diaspora in the world, but Guidanian is so random. And then I meet this guy on set when we're filming a commercial, and he's like, "Did you know that your granddad and my granddad are cousins?" I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" He's like, "Yeah, you're from Aintab, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "So are we, but we're Aintablian, and you guys changed later." This random guy is telling me this history, and he said, "I think it was because the families didn't politically agree. One was more Tashnak, the other one was more Hunchak, I think, or something, and they disputed," which is very random, this random guy telling me. So this is all of the history I know.
In Lebanon, he was telling you this?
Yeah. He was like, "Did you know?" I'm like, "How do you know my granddad?"
That's amazing.
So weird, yeah.
Okay, going back a little bit to you saying that you identify most with being Aintabsi, why and what does that mean?
Okay, because my mom would make fun of the things that I would do when I was a kid. So apparently every time I would go to someone's house, I would want to sleep there. Always. I'd be like, "Mom, can I please sleep here?" And she'd be like, "Don't be an Aintabsi." Because apparently Aintabsis just go and sleep wherever they finish the day. And I'm like, also they say that Aintabsis are very stubborn. I'm also very stubborn. So all of these things that are people have been not making fun of me, but identifying me as is very, very Aintabsi. So I was like, okay, I'll take I'll appropriate that the most.
Oh, that's amazing. I haven't heard many distinctions between. Of course, everyone knows what villages their family lives in, but I haven't heard many characteristics that distinguish one from the other.
Yeah.
What else do you know about any of the identities and characteristics of the towns that your family are from?
So most of them have been when the revolution, the Armenian revolution started, and when we've had all of the federations and stuff like that. Isn't federations? Organization? Mm-hmm. No, it's not there. No,
the voluntary.
Or not, the Hunchaks, the political parties. Yeah. Okay, when all the different Armenian parties started, I think they were very active in these parts of like like Zaytun teas. They have a lot of songs about Zaytun teas, like having arms and like fighting for their Armenianness. Antep teas as well, Marash teas. Marash teas, I know most about like their food. Their food is very famous, and their terakorts. Like the Marashi, that the work they do is very, very famous, and it's very precious and valuable. So yeah, that's mostly.
And do you know of any of the 4 villages that you mentioned? Your family living there, what work they did, what jobs they had, what occupations they were?
No, not really, no.
Do you know anything about their experience during the genocide and how or why they had to flee?
Not really. I only remember nothing about the genocide itself, but I remember my dad's mom, my grandma, telling me that they were so poor, like after settling, like I think she was born in Lebanon, I'm not sure, but like her mom was definitely not born in Lebanon. And they would, at the end of the year, they would take their Vijagatuit, how do you say? Like where all your bond grades are. Report card. They would go and exchange their report cards for some candy because they didn't have any other means to get candy. I don't know how true that is, but like she would say that like, in general it was like poverty. Also, I know that my mom's dad's side in Syria, they would eat the lahmajuns with bread, so they would get full easier with less money because they were also very poor. So, and my grandpa continued doing that until his last days. He would put the lahmacun in more bread and eat it like that. It's a very like the survival instinct, the that thing where it's like you need to get full, but you don't have a lot of resources too. I think that has also stayed in my mind a lot. Like, who eats pizza with more bread, like. But they would do that because they didn't have enough resources.
Do you know anything about their how they survived?
No, I don't. No one has ever talked to me enough about it for me to know.
And what about the first generation that arrived in, I guess, it wasn't Lebanon.
It was Syria. It was
so
Syria.
What about the first generation that arrived there? What was it like for them? You definitely didn't meet anyone who was in that first generation, but
no.
What have you heard about them?
I'm not really sure. That I know that I have a big part of my family that's in Syria. Unfortunately, I've never been there. I've met them, but they were pretty established in Syria, and then they came to Lebanon. But that is the general. They were mostly like on survival mode, very poor. They barely have enough to feed themselves and everyone else. But
And what did your grandparents tell you about their childhoods, or like what did you learn from them about anything? Like what stories they told you, either about the genocide, about their childhood themselves. Like the story you gave about the eating the bread with lahmacun.
Oh yeah. That I actually don't really remember any of them. I'm sure they've told me. If I remember, okay, I will let you know.
No problem. And then in terms of their growing up in Lebanon, or your parents growing up in Lebanon, or for your grandparents Syria, what was it like for them?
I think so. They all lived in neighborhoods that were mostly Armenians around them. They never actually got out of that area. Even when they went for the summer to the villages, to the cooler areas of Lebanon, they would still rent a house with Armenians all around them. So there was very closed off Armenian communities. What else? I was gonna say something, I forgot.
Well, how? So can you speak at all about the Syria-Lebanon shift that you were talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the families settled there, and then the rest of them came to Lebanon. And the Lebanese law, I think, at some point stated that you either like become Lebanese, but because you can't be Lebanese unless you're born there from a Lebanese dad. That's the only way you can become Lebanese. You live there 1,000 years, you can never become Lebanese. There is no way of citizenship. That is because of other things such as the Palestinian refugees and everything like that. It's a whole different story. So my parents fully have lived in Lebanon. So it was their parents before them who came, but the relations were very close with the family in Syria, so they would go and come back a lot. They were born in Syria, but then they got the Lebanese citizenship, so they're now all like they were all Lebanese. My mom and dad, born in Lebanon, went to school in Lebanon, and like their whole life they've lived the civil war. From 75 till the 90s. They got married right after the Civil War in 92. And they had me in 93. So they literally lived their whole like beginning of adulthood life, the university and everything during the war. There's a lot of stories revolving around that. Do you want me to get into that, or do you want to?
Soon, but not yet.
Exactly.
Specifically, within Burj Hamud, like all the different types of Armenian communities there.
Yeah, for sure. So there are two big cities where Armenians were located. There's Beirut and there's Anjar. The Anjar one is mostly the Musalertsis that started to regress from fighting, and then they settled in Anjar. It's very close to the border with Syria. And then in Beirut, there's downtown Beirut with the non-Armenian quarter, and Burj Hamud. Now, the reason most of Armenians are in Burj Hamud was so when they got there, they started staying in refugee camps. So Camp Sanjak, Camp Hajan, they named them after the villages they came from. So, and then that was very close to Burj Hamud. So little by little, they started getting houses and stuff like that. The camp, unfortunately, doesn't exist anymore. It did up until a couple of years ago. You could still see the houses with how do you say? There barely is a roof. It's tin, yes, with tin roofs. People were living like that up until a couple of years ago. They would still, generation after generation, they stayed in refugee camps, which no longer looked like a refugee camp. Now they had actual walls and actual roofs and stuff. But yeah, and the Armenian quarter in downtown Beirut is where there was an Armenian school. The first one, Nishan Palanjian Gemaran, and a lot of the people lived around it. We also have a church. So basically, the community in Lebanon, Armenian communities are usually a lot of people living somewhere, a school, a church, a club. That's it. That's everything you need for your Armenian identity around you, and that's how people start to live around these locations. So, and we're known anywhere we go. We build a church, we build a school. And that's how communities start forming. So yeah, that's basically how they are. Now there is also a big community in Antilias, which we call it Zargatzor. I don't know, the area, that's where I went to school. It's the Hamaskain, Melanchthon and Hargarstanian Gemaran. We call it Zargatzor Mezher. I don't know why. I honestly don't know. We also, later on, there was a club there, so a lot of Armenians live around that area too.
And not that you know the intent, but why do you think so many Armenian mini communities were created in Lebanon?
I think they stayed together, and I I honestly don't know like how it was, but usually it's like around a school or around something. Like, but the one I'm sure of is Burchamud, because the refugee camps were there when they first settled in, and then they started moving to actual houses.
And it seemed like, at least to some extent, maybe from the camps or from the destinations people came from, people were able to stay within somewhat the communities that they had come from in the Ottoman Empire and historic Armenia. But how much did you see those distinctions between communities alive in your generation growing up? So maybe for your grandparents it was very important to still be Zeytunsi, Antepsi, Maraşsi, etc.
Yeah.
How clearly you know about it because you were saying the distinct characteristics of Antepsis, etc.
Yeah.
But how present was it in your generation, these distinctions?
Okay, so for example, the Maraşsis have an association, like Maraşsineru, like organization, that everyone that has Maraşsi roots, they belong to that. The Anjartsis, the Musalertsis, they have their own village, their own parpar. They're like, they don't, the village, the Anjar they live in, they don't sell houses to Odars that are not Armenian. That's how it's very a close community. They speak within themselves in their own parpar, and they gave that from generation to generation. So that's pretty much it. And during the talks, when you ask people and stuff, and you would form these small alliances of being like, yeah, we're all Antepsis here, and we're all whatever, at school and stuff like that. There wasn't that much that other than these two, like the Maraşsis and the Anjarsis, that have made an impression on me. But these are the two that I remember.
And they still have their own barbar, the Anjarsis?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But you understand it?
Not really. If they really speak it, I will not understand it. I know a couple of words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What is the difference, for example?
For example, we say dra, irenk dura.
Really?
Hokis, we say hokis, irenkisen hikes. I knew a couple of them because I had friends from Anjar. I forgot more of but if they really speak fast, I'll not understand it.
Wow, that's amazing they're able to keep it.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's still mostly in Anjar the same people living, or have more Armenians from other communities gone to Anjar now?
No, not really. Anjar is very, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from the center. And for Lebanon, that is far away. Because Lebanon is so small. So not a lot of people go to settle down in Anjar. A lot of them have summer houses and things like that there. But they will always be viewed as outsiders. They're not actual Musalertsi Anjarts.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Anjartsis are intense about that.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you more about your identity.
Yeah.
But let's go back to first, I guess, before you were born. So what do you know about your parents' generation growing up in Lebanon? What was it like for them being Armenian in Lebanon? And then we'll get to the Civil War. Okay.
So for my parents' generation, they both went to Armenian schools. My mom went to Guidanian and my dad went to Mesrobian. Mesrobian was more of a Catholic Armenian school. And Guidanian was just a national, Azkain school. They went to school under the bombings of the Civil War, and they would, my mom would tell me that if they knew that they were gonna start bombing and striking, the teacher would take us home, and then we would stay in the shelter and stuff like that. They didn't the life didn't stop even during the Civil War. There are a lot of things that still I see around me that they still linger. For example, my mom's driver's license from when she was 18. They used to write on your driver's license or on your ID, I don't remember, if you had taken, because there was a shortage of resources. So if you go, let's say, to the store to buy sugar, they would write on your ID, it's Ani, she bought 1 kilogram of sugar on this day. So you can't go the second day to get more because you have to give the chance to others to buy sugar. So I found that idea and I was like, yeah, what's that? And she was like, yeah, they used to write whenever you went to get bread or sugar or whatever, so that you would not take a lot. Yeah, they would stand in line for these things, and just like, you know, during the blockade, the Arzavsis were. So yeah, those are things that I remember. My mom and dad met when they were both members of the Zavarian Student Association. And what else? I don't know. Ask me more questions.
Yeah. What? Well, with regard to the Civil War,
I have a question from before.
Oh, yeah,
do you know what, like your grandparents and parents, what languages they spoke?
Yes.
And, like, where or in what context?
So my grandparents would speak Turkish between them, but I think that was mainly so we don't understand. So when we were kids, they were gonna complain about us or something. They would start speaking Turkish between them. My mom and dad, but other than that, it's all Armenian. There's also something between Armenians and Lebanese and Arabic that remind me, I'll tell you right now. So my mom also learned Turkish. I don't think my dad knows. And then my generation didn't really like... I would understand some words at some point because they were using them a lot. And I would like tease them with it, but that's it. So the anecdote. My grandparents' Arabic was very bad. Because Arabic is such a different language from Armenian. Arabic has feminine, masculine for everything. It's like French is like Latin languages. Armenian doesn't. So there's this ongoing joke, it's been 100 years now, about Armenians not knowing how to speak Arabic and saying things wrong. So they would make jokes such as Armenians would congratulate moms on Father's Day because they don't know the feminine and masculine. So my grandparents' generation never actually learned Arabic because they were very new to that. My parents' generation started to learn, but because we were in so close communities that if whatever you're learning in school, you're keeping it at school, you're not using it during your exchanges in life because you're speaking Armenian to everything. Even like the store is the guy's Armenian, you're going to church Armenian, the club, everything. So my parents' generation and then my generation started getting better and better at Arabic, but we still have these jokes. And I think that's why they would speak like either Turkish or Armenian between them. Most of them also learned French because Lebanon at some point was under the French colony. They were a colony, so that was a whole other thing with like all of its impacts. For example, my mom's granddad was in the French army in Lebanon during the colonization, so that's also like...
Wow, he survived the genocide and then was in the French army in Lebanon.
Yeah, during the colonization. The colonization ended in 43, I think. I'm not sure.
In Syria, something that we've understood was that the French really favored the Armenians, and so the Armenians were treated well there. Was it similar in
Yeah.
Did your grandfather choose to serve, do you know? Or like...
Not mine, my mom's
so your mom's grandfather.
I'm not sure. I just know that he has served in the French army.
Interesting. Do you know any of the benefits that the Armenians got from the French or not?
In Lebanon, no.
What do you think is important for us to know about the Lebanese Civil War?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that are personal stories, like my mom and my dad's, that I'm going to tell you. So during the Lebanese Civil War, Beirut was divided into two, West Beirut and East Beirut. Yeah, and each part of it was ruled by either like the Christians, the Sunnis, the Shias. They would check people's IDs. There were checkpoints made by Lebanese for the Lebanese. And if you're, for example, Christian crossing to West Beirut, they might not let you cross. They might kidnap you. My mom's friend has been kidnapped. Yeah, there were a lot of like these things going on. Sorry. So my mom really wanted to go to the to the American University of Beirut, to AUB, to study nursing, but her dad wouldn't let her, because she would have to cross the Green Line. Why is it called Green Line? Because they divided Beirut and no one was crossing that line for ages. That vegetation started growing from it, and it became an actual green line that was separating Beirut. And all the Armenians were mostly, I think, in East Beirut. I will remind me to make sure of that information. I don't want to say anything wrong. And so mostly the Islams were in the part where the American University was, and then my mom eventually ended up going to High Gazian and did education instead of nursing, because there wasn't so that was her whole life. She's been telling me, like, I wish I would have gone to AUB to do nursing. I would have loved to do nursing. And I was like, I tried. I was like, okay, Mom, I'll make your dream come true through me. But then I was like, I can't really do nursing. I don't like blood. So I'm sorry to disappoint you. So yeah, that is basically it. Just like Syria, the guys would also be armed around our clubs, and they would stay there, and they would do surveillance and security just to make sure that everything's okay. They would look out for each other. I know a lot of people who have met each other in bunkers. They have met each other while helping, like being in the Red Cross. A lot of couples have formed like that. For example, my uncle, my mom's brother, is married to a non-Armenian Lebanese. And my whole life I was like, how? Like everyone around me, they're all like Armenian. And my grandma, she didn't really like the fact that his wife isn't Armenian, but anyway, she'd be like, because he was volunteering in Ashrafiye, which is like more of a not Armenian quarter, and he met her there because he was volunteering with the Red Cross there, and they fell in love. I'm like, in the middle of war, like, they really like... So yeah, most of them, my parents' generation, were like that. They either got married during the war or right exactly after the war ended. Like, life was continuing normally between bunkers and, running on the streets and not being able to go to places because of the divide between Beirut and the checkpoints. The checkpoints were actually very scary, and up until today, I think that it's not really normal for someone in your own country, from your own nationality, to tell you if you're Muslim or Christian or Sunni or Shia or Armenian, if you can cross or not. It's not logical. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in Lebanon, is because we're very sectarian. Very. So it started from back then.
Well, since you're talking about it, what is the problem in Lebanon?
Okay, so the problem in Lebanon is we have no civil law that is without that doesn't include people's religions or ethnicities. So in Lebanon, the president has to be a Christian Maronite. The prime minister has to be a Muslim Sunni, and then I don't remember the other one. He has to be Muslim Shia. Always. You can't change it. They did it this way because of something called Ittifaq al-Ta'if, which is like the agreement of the sects. So everyone would have equal representation. In the parliament, we have the Armenians have 4 seats, and then different types of Armenians can be in those seats, like Armenian Orthodox, Armenian Catholic, and from different, from Beirut, and then one is from Mount Lebanon, and then one is from... It's a whole thing. Understanding Lebanese politics is a PhD. And what else? And we have 2 seats for ministries. Sometimes we get 1 ministry per government. Sometimes we get 2 ministries per government. That's how the representation is. So you can imagine, like, for Muslim Shias how it is, because they're bigger in numbers in Lebanon. Muslim Sunnis, Christian Maronites, Muslim Durzis, everything is related to your sect, to your ethnicity, to your religion. There is no civil law, civil marriage in Lebanon. You can't really go to the place to get married. You have to get married either in church, in a mosque. No one, like, they go to Cyprus to get civil marriage because there is none in Lebanon.
So even people who aren't religious, they still go.
Exactly, because you can't really register your marriage for the government unless it's been done by a church.
And has that, like, affected you at all in your life in Lebanon, or any of your friends?
I mean, the thing about my life in Lebanon having to do with all of these things is I grew up in a very close Armenian community, and my first exposure to non-Armenians, I've been exposed when I was a kid, but when I could understand everything was when I went to Model UN, in a part of the city that's mostly Sunnis. And I've never, like, actually befriended a Muslim person before. And I met this girl called Sarah, and she wasn't veiled or anything. And I couldn't believe that she's Sunni. I was like, you're lying to me. You're not Sunni. And she's like, Araz, I swear to God, I'm a Muslim. I'm like, no, you're normal. Like, you're like me. What? I wouldn't understand that. But I'm so grateful for that exposure. It made my life so much easier afterwards. Because university and everything... Most of my close friends have been Muslims afterwards. But it is a problem if you want to get married to a Muslim. They either have to convert, or you have to convert, or you decide not to. And then, are you going to baptize the kids, or you're not going to baptize the kids? There's this whole thing. Like, it's everything. And the kid is the dad's religion, no matter what. So we have no law that gives the mom any rights to give the child the nationality. Moms don't give nationalities, or like anything else. It's a very patriarchal law, like not law. The society in general. Yeah.
Like, did you ever hear, like, issues with, like, in the Armenian community, like divorce or like custody of the children and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the church would control that. Were there issues you saw?
It's so hard to get divorced as an Armenian.
Yeah.
The church doesn't let you divorce. They bring a sex therapist if it's a sexual problem. Yeah. It's so weird. Like, dude, they just want to get divorced. They will have, like, couples counseling, sexual counseling. They will bring in a sexologist, and they would do everything in their power to fix the couple. Like, the couple doesn't want to get fixed. It's very hard to get a divorce in the Armenian community. And the Armenians that marry non-Armenians, they are already, like, looked upon weird. It was worse when it was my parents' generation. Now it's getting easier and easier. If it's non-Armenian Christian, it's better than non-Armenian Muslim, which is like, oh my God, like, the first Christian nation in the world, how can you marry a Muslim? It's such a taboo. Because again, the kids, how are you going to raise the kids? Everyone's like wondering, are you going to raise them Christian, Armenian, Muslim, nothing at all? And what was the second question?
Oh, okay, I didn't ask it. Back to the Civil War, do you feel like Armenians were more just, like, defending themselves, or did they get involved in, like, trying to be a part of things more?
Yeah, Armenians were mainly defending themselves, but there have been incidents where they got into things, and unfortunately there has been between Armenians as well, like the Tashnaks and the Hunchaks. There's the hate between them in Lebanon started from the Civil War, because everyone sided with different people, and they were clashing, like their beliefs and what they're standing for was clashing. But mostly it was self-defense. They weren't actively participating in the Civil War as people who are attacking, but just like defending our communities, making sure that we are okay. If somebody needs something, we help each other. That was the general idea.
Okay, going back to your childhood now. So where were you born in Lebanon, and what was your childhood like as an Armenian in Lebanon?
So I was born in Burchamud, where we lived for around 3 years, and then we moved. My childhood was very Armenian.
You moved where?
To another suburban area.
With Armenians?
Yeah, of course. So in Burchamud, I lived right across the hallway from the building. No,
in the building.
In the building from my grandma, which was super nice. I went to an Armenian kindergarten, like Armenian preschool, Armenian school, everything. Like all my life has been. The kindergarten was called Jinishan. It was close to our house. I don't think I liked it too much because I don't have very fun, like happy memories from that place. And then my school was in Mazher in Antillas, like I told you. The first language I learned was Armenian. We spoke Armenian at home, of course. And what else? What was my childhood like? Which aspect do you want me to?
So you went to Armenian school, and you went to Agobet. So what was the name of your school? What was the name of your Agobet?
Okay, so my school is Hamaskaini Melanchthon Yev Haigarslanyan College. I was a scout when I was like 3. I hated it, but my mom would take me every Sunday, put the uniform on, and be like, I don't want to go, I hate it. But I would go, and then I stopped going. I never went to Sunday school or anything. My grandma was always pissed about that because my school is not really religious either. She'd be like, how are you growing up Armenian? You know nothing about the church. I'm like, you chose my school. I have nothing to do with this, and no one's taking me to Sunday school, so I'm sorry. I know almost nothing about religion, and everyone's so pissed about that because my school was mostly very national and like Karaparagan. I don't know how to say it. They focus more on the ideology of being Armenian, of being revolutionary, of being like liberal-minded, but also very focused on your Armenianness, on the future of your community, of Armenia in general. It's very, very nationalistic in a nice, like, non-fascist way. It's mostly like a Tashnak-Tsagan ideology as well, so it's focused on that. I keep losing my train of thought.
What were some of those ideologies? Like, what did they teach you? What does it mean to be... What did they teach you about what it meant to be Armenian?
To be Armenian. Okay. So everything was in Armenian mostly. Like, all the subjects we would take up until like 5th grade were in Armenian, including science, math, and everything. We have separate books and like all in Armenian and stuff. Ideology-wise, we would start to learn the history, Armenian history, but we didn't learn it as history on its own. It was very analytical and critical. The approach of the school, the approach of the education system was for us to analyze things and know and have our own ideas of what we thought around a certain situation. Of course, we learned a lot about how to be an Armenian, how to be... I don't know how to explain it. Like, we would have classes where we would just talk about how to be a civil Armenian, if that's the right way to translate it. Like, we would very focused on like Armenia, the history of the genocide. We would talk about that a lot. The political parties. What else? I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
You have a question about that?
I just have a silly question.
Yeah.
Did you go back and forth every day to the school?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How far is that?
It's a 15-minute drive.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was like in the mountains.
No. It is a bit higher than like normal Beirut, but it's not. Like, it's a 15-minute drive.
Yeah. I guess, do you feel like, do you still agree with a lot of the things you were taught? We'll get to this later too.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, do you still agree with like
Yes.
a lot that you were taught in school? And do you feel like it's a good alternative to like kind of more traditional Armenian schools that just go by like older, or like by the church or by other ways of teaching?
Yes, I'm very grateful to have been a student at this school because of the way it taught me how to think, how to criticize, how to analyze things, and not just take things as a given, but always ask questions and always have different opinions. I prefer this type of education and more instead of the more one that is closer to the church, because I know from all my friends, like, they would be very like how do you say, like, the guilt and the shame that comes with like education that revolves around the church is higher, and we had none of that. We were just like very free to express ourselves most of the time. I think we were known in the community as the spoiled brats that always have an opinion, but I think that's a good thing.
When did you interact with other Armenians, like not from your school? Was it at Agump? Was it also through like scouts? Did you go to some pan-Lebanese Armenian games? Like, how did you interact with Armenians outside of your school?
Outside of my school, yes, it was Agump. It was the scout. Also the musical, like the cultural center of Avelidishta, so the cultural center where I was part of the choir, also the dance group. What else? No sports. I'm not a sports person.
Did you get together with Armenians from other parts of Lebanon also?
Yes. So different agumps from different parts of Lebanon would have like seminars together or like zhovovs together and stuff like that. So that's how, and campings we used to do like with AYF and like later on with Zavarian Student Association and stuff like that. So that's how I met most of the people not from my school. And summer school, Armenian summer school. Where I met like a lot of people from different schools just for 2 months, which is nice.
Wow. What was April 24th like in Lebanon?
So we take April 24 very seriously, just like every other diaspora community. It was basically just so the night before on April 23 we would do something called Huskum, where we would be paying our respects to the victims of the Armenian genocide, and the Antilias Church and the Holy Kilikia Church, where the some of the bones of the victims are there in a small madur. That was the April 23. April 24, we would usually block the big highway road and like walk from the church to Burchamud or anywhere else. Like, we would have different marches every year just to have a different impact. Everyone would join, all the schools, like they would tell you to join with your school, with your scout, with your agump, with the marching bands would join, the religious people, the political, all three political parties would come together that day. There's no difference between us. Like, during that day, everyone is like united, because the political parties in Lebanon are not very united when it comes to the on the ground politics, not about being Armenian. So yeah, it was huge, and we would that was it. Like, we would march a lot, block the roads, get to somewhere, either the big football stadium that we have in Burchamud or like somewhere else that fits everyone. Someone would take a speech, and that's it.
What to you does it mean to be Armenian?
It means preservation of culture, resilience, and fighting for survival.
How did you do that in Lebanon? All those things.
Yeah, so the preservation of culture was with all our like cultural centers. We had a choir, dance ensemble, the musical instruments and everything that the duduks that they would teach and the Armenianness, and the theater. We also had a theater. That was the preservation of culture. At the same time, learning about our culture and about the people who have influenced Armenian culture in school. So the musicians, the different writers, the different photographers, cinematographers, everything. What did I say? The resilience. Resilience, and naturally in Lebanon, there is this sense of resilience in general because Lebanon is in a situation that's like you always have to adapt and you always have to come up above difficulties. I think that is being Armenian in Lebanon. That's what it embodies. And the fight for survival is not really I don't know how to say it. Maybe it's not survival might not be the right word. It's just the fight to exist, to keep existing. And that is with just I think telling people the second you meet them that you're Armenian and telling them what your name means, and automatically that takes you to tell them about the genocide, and that automatically takes them to tell them about current Armenia. That's what would happen with me. They'll be like, what's your name? Araz. Oh, that's a pretty name. What does it mean? It means it's a river in occupied Armenia, which is now Western Armenia. Why is it occupied? Because of the genocide, because this, because of that. And then it would I would just tell them the whole story basically. I would never miss a chance to tell people I'm Armenian. A lot of them ask you, are you more Lebanese or Armenian? There's no such thing. Would you prefer Lebanon or Armenia? There's no such thing. It's like parents, It's like your mom and your dad. In a healthy family relationship, you wouldn't be able to pick between one or the other. So, yeah, I think that's Armenianness.
Well, that is a question we want to ask you. Do you feel more Lebanese or Armenian or Lebanese Armenian?
I can't feel more of one thing. There will be situations where I feel more Lebanese or more Armenian. For example, if I know that Lebanon is in a war, for that split second of knowing it, I would feel more Lebanese because of the way I would feel protective about Lebanon and not wanting it to be at war. At the same way that if I know that Artsakh or Armenia are under attack or is something happening, I would feel more Armenian at that second. But they are not. Nothing cancels the other one.
How would you define yourself? Would you say you're Lebanese Armenian?
Yeah. I'm Lebanese Armenian. I'm a person with Armenian origins, Armenian roots that has grown up in Lebanon, but I'm equally Lebanese and Armenian.
I love it. That's great. Okay, great. Why do you think Lebanon? So you were describing before the resilience and the fight to exist, and the preservation of the culture and everything that is being Armenian. Why do you think Lebanon did that so well? Do you think Lebanon did it well? And if so, why?
Yeah. The first of all the Armenians are always super thankful for Lebanon for being such a hospitable country, for accepting us, for not giving us the refugee status, for giving us the Lebanese identity and the Armenian the Lebanese nationality and the passport and everything. I think what was done in Lebanon very well was to keep everyone feeling secure and safe around their community. If you need something, the church is there, the Agump is there, the school is there, Loch is there, the Red Cross, Oknuchan Khach, the Lebanese. Yeah, it's almost the Armenian Red Cross type of thing. They are always there. So we have centers that are free, free clinics. We have the Red Cross center that is free, and it's not only for Armenians, but there are things that would not make you wanna go to a different community. Like, no one would let someone suffer in the community. If you need something, if you need money, if you need this, everyone comes together for it. And the way the people have been able to rely on these organizations, politically and daily life in general, I think that is what was able to keep the Armenian, like the Lebanese Armenian community that strong and that well, because a lot of them left during the Civil War. That's right, like they left to Canada, Australia, the US, France, but most of them stayed because they felt safe, because they felt like they had someone back them up when they needed something.
Actually, do you know the percentages, or at least the numbers of how many Armenians there were in Lebanon before the Civil War and how many left?
I can't. I can research it, but I can't tell you now.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But that's interesting and amazing to know that a lot of them did stay because of the support that they felt for the community.
They still, I mean, it's very hard now to live in Lebanon. I know what we're talking about, like the past, but currently as well. And there are a lot of them that stay because of the community and because they have their lives there and they can't just get up and leave. So it's like a given, like the organizations give and the community gives back to the organization, like the purpose to stay there, to continue helping them.
What do you think is the most unique thing about the Lebanese Armenian community? Or not most unique, it doesn't need to be. What are the things that distinguish it from other Armenian diaspora communities that you know or have seen or have heard about?
I don't know, we can be so Lebanese, but like everyone can be so their country at some point. I don't know. I don't know. I think we were able to preserve a lot of the things, such as like the food, the language, the culture, the music, the dances and everything, because it was easier for a country like Lebanon, where it's like smaller and everyone's around each other, as well as the agums, as well as the Red Cross. I think it was very easy to keep everyone, like, I think that's what distinguishes it, because in other diaspora countries, they're bigger. The Armenians are more like dispersed everywhere. They don't have that privilege to be close to each other that much. I think that is nice. I don't...
That's beautiful. What... Ani, anything else from her, like her living in Lebanon?
I guess, like, did you say challenge of the community?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what do you think, like, a challenge facing the community is in the future?
Wait, we're not up to future yet.
Or not?
No.
Okay, or now, sorry.
Wait, no, hold on. We're still in her childhood Lebanon.
Oh.
Like her raising.
Still the past.
Okay, so we haven't got to, like,
yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Araz, is there anything else that you want to share with us about what it meant for you to be an Armenian growing up in Lebanon?
Oh yeah, I have one story.
Okay.
So one time, my dad was in Armenia and he got me this t-shirt that said 100% Armenian. It's a black, nice shirt. I wore it to university not thinking anything about it because I just wanted a black fit. The whole day, everyone is asking me, how dare you be 100% Armenian? Are you not Lebanese? Like, yes, I am, but like I'm also 100% Armenian. Like, it's 100% Lebanese and 100% Armenian. Because both my parents are Lebanese Armenian. Do you get it? Most of them didn't get it. They felt offended that I would wear a shirt that would say 100% Armenian when I'm a Lebanese Armenian. And I was like, the whole day. And I go back home and I tell my dad, like, you know, this shirt you got me has been the topic of the day. He's like, good. Let them ask you about your Armenianness. Tell them about your Armenianness. Make sure that they know that you're as Armenian as you're Lebanese. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I tell them every day.
Araz, what was it like? So you said that you grew up mostly with Armenians, and then at the university stage, or maybe a little bit before that, you started interacting with non-Armenians. What was that like for you?
It was both positive and negative. So the positive thing was when people knew what Armenians are. I mean, keep in mind that some of them would come from communities where there are no Armenians. They've never interacted with an Armenian in their lives. And then there are the people who don't know what Armenianness is, so you have to tell them from zero. There are people who have interacted with Armenians in their lives, whether that be an ex-girlfriend, a restaurant, a hairdresser, a shoemaker, like everything that Armenians are good at, a tailor, and things like that. And they would mostly have very positive, like, impressions of Armenians, and they would, of course, tell you, oh, I know this word, inch veces. Great. Can you teach me more? Absolutely not, but yeah, sure. And there were people who would either jokingly or non-jokingly be mean. One time, this guy said, you and the domestic workers from Sri Lanka are the same. You are both refugees in this country, and you need to leave. One time, this guy asked me what my name meant, and I was like, it's Armenian, I'm Lebanese Armenian. He said, why don't you go back to your country then? And I was like, this is my country, do you not get it? Like, I'm as Lebanese as you are. There have been some instances like that, or there was, I don't think I want to call it racism, but like, you know, like not tolerant towards Armenians. But Armenians have been nothing but a nice positive influence on the Lebanese community. Everyone mostly likes us. We've integrated very well into the community, except the not knowing Arabic part, but which is a nice joke. So yeah, so these are the type of people that I would meet in university, and with every one of them I would have like a different type of conversation, and I would add to their knowledge about the Armenian life. We would tell our professors, me and my other colleague at university who was also Armenian, every April 24 we would tell them we're not coming, and they'd be like, we understand. All our projects in university revolved around being an Armenian. All the things that I've shot during university, the reports, the films, everything had to do with Armenianness. I was just putting it down people's mouth like that. This is Armenianness.
Why do you think it's important that other people know about Armenians? Mm-hmm. And then second, why is it important to you that we as a community preserve these things? So first, why is it important that other people know?
Mm-hmm. Why is it important? It's part of who I am, personally. It's an undeniable part of who I am. You cannot have Araz as a Lebanese Armenian not show her Armenian, and my name is enough, you know, for people to know who I am. I think I'm very proud of being Armenian. I'm very proud of my ancestors who have survived the genocide and kept their Armenianness alive to a point where I need to tell everyone that yes, even after 100 years of what happened to us, I'm here, I speak Armenian, my name's Armenian, my family name ends with Yan. Even though I'm living in a country that's not mine, I'm still being as Armenian as I would ever be. So that's the importance of people knowing.
Beautiful. And why is it important that we as a community preserve these things? You said in the what it means to be Armenian, your first answer was, or in Lebanese Armenian, yeah, the first answer was about preserving Armenianness. Why is that important?
I don't want Armenianness in diaspora to die, because everyone in the diaspora, most of them, not to generalize, they dream about coming back to Armenia, living in Armenia, having Armenia we have this homeland, this motherland, fatherland, whatever you call it, that we want this ideal place to be our home, but at the same time we can't because of circumstances that are outside of our hands. the importance of preserving all of this is to keep our relation, first of all, to our Armenianness, to Armenia, because we currently, it's not like we are saying we're about to go extinct, that's why we're going to preserve it. No, we have a country and we can give so much to it. We have to preserve the culture, the Armenianness, so that we can give to Armenia in the best way possible that we can. That's within our reach. So I don't want the Armenian culture to fade away. So yeah, we need to preserve, we need to protect it.
That's something that you're worried, like, that
Yeah.
might be a reality?
Yeah. It worries me a lot. Because I see the interests of people when we were smaller, and now in like people that the newest generation, the people interested in the cultural aspects of being Armenian, besides the food, because the food is the easiest one, I think is becoming less and less. I might be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I think we need to keep that interest in, especially the younger generation, make it as interesting as possible to them, make sure they can know what it's like, what it means to be an Armenian.
Is it something you're worried about, particularly for the Lebanese Armenian community, or the whole?
Yeah, I can speak for the Armenian Lebanese community because I'm the closest to them. I don't know other communities. The amount of parents that like put their kids in non-Armenian schools worries me a lot, because they say, oh, the education is better. It's not. It's the same. Plus, your kid will learn Armenian and Armenian history and how to be Armenian and Armenian songs and Armenian dance. And like, the people who have graduated from Armenian schools, we've done great in life. We miss nothing, you know? It's the contrary. We've won a language. We've won a way of thinking. So I don't like it when people put their kids in non-Armenian schools. We have a lot of good Armenian schools in Lebanon. All of them are good. And then like, I don't know, this might be like extremist, but like we have an Armenian dance like ensemble, and then people go to like non-Armenian dance ensembles, even though the Armenian one like really dances almost anything and everything. It's really good. What else? Mostly it's the parents that are putting the kids in non-Armenian schools that worries me, because it was growing up, my main way of knowing who I am was my school, and if you're missing on that, it's a shame.
And you see that as a shift from, like a change from when your generation and this generation, like there are more parents that are seemingly putting their kids in non-Armenian schools than there were when you were growing up?
Yes, the numbers in Armenian schools has decreased. It might be from a lot of different factors, though, especially in Lebanon with the inflation and the dollar rate and like the tuitions being more than people can afford and stuff. But still, the Armenian schools always find a way to help the kids stay in Armenian schools. It's nothing like you either pay or your kids can't attend. But yeah, it has been, the numbers has been increasing.
As far as you know, the schools that they're opting to go to instead of Armenian schools, are those cheaper schools?
No.
Okay.
They're better schools that are known to have better education, like higher standards of education. But I'll say it again, all Armenian schools have very high standards of education.
Did you ever feel like a minority in Lebanon as an Armenian?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did it, like, how, like, did you have examples of how it affected you? Or how did you feel like a minority? Or
I would say during elections, like the parliamentary elections, where we would always have to like team up with other local political parties in order to have enough votes for our parliament members to win the elections. When people made fun of my Armenianness, what else? Being like the only Armenian person working in somewhere. I don't know, like at university there were not like enough, like a lot of Armenians in the university I went to, which is like the Fine Arts Academy of Lebanon. That's where we would always feel like minorities. When establishments wouldn't close on April 24 out of respect. Yeah, that's basically.
So why did you choose to, well, before I ask this question, why did you choose to leave Lebanon? Is there anything else you want to talk about growing up in Lebanon, your childhood, your adolescence, your adulthood, anything about Lebanon before you left that you want to add?
No.
Okay. Why did you leave Lebanon? And where did you go?
Okay, so I left Lebanon. End of 2019 when the inflation started. I already didn't want to stay in Lebanon for personal reasons, and I came to Yerevan with birthright. I'm gonna start again.
Okay.
You want a blanket, Shahid?
You can sit here if you want.
Do you want a piece of pizza?
Okay, there's pizza over there.
Okay, so yeah, I left Lebanon end of 2019, when the first inflation, like the hints of inflation started. I already didn't want to stay in Lebanon for personal reasons. And I came to Armenia, to Yerevan I started with birthright. And that was it.
And what did you do with birthright?
So I volunteered for a production house up until COVID. Unfortunately, COVID happened and that stopped most of the work. And I stopped being a birthrighter at that point.
Can you explain what birthright is?
Okay, Birthright Armenia is an organization that invites people who have any percentage of Armenianness in them to come and volunteer in their homeland, to learn about it, to learn about current day Armenia, to stay with host families, interact with the locals, learn Armenian, and have fun while doing so.
Was it your first time in Armenia?
No.
Do you remember your first time in Armenia?
Yes.
What was that like for you?
My first time in Armenia was back in 2011 when my uncle was getting married. I had that.
Beautiful.
That was maybe like the front of the video.
Live to entertain. November, my first time in Armenia was in November 2011. My uncle was getting married. My uncle has been here for around 20 years now. He's established here. His wife is local Armenian. We came for 3 days. We arrived, wedding day, went to Kalume, back home.
Amazing.
And then my second time was in 2015 where I had nothing to do in Lebanon. I was like, I'm going to Armenia because that was my dream. Since I'm a kid, every time someone goes to Armenia, I'm like, I need to go with you. Bob, can I go? Do you have $400 for the ticket? He'd be like, Araz, sit down. Like, shut up. You can't go. You can't travel alone to Armenia. You're 7. Stop.
What was your impression of Armenia?
I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was the first time I had gotten a professional camera, so I took pictures of everything. People's weird shoes that locals wore and their haircuts, and at a certain point my dad was like, Araz, someone's gonna come and beat you up and I'm not gonna do anything about it because you deserve it. Stop taking pictures of everything. And I was like, oh my god, everyone knows that my name is Araz because I'm Armenian. I don't have to explain my name to people. They get it immediately. Just the biggest wow factor. And then being able to speak Armenian to people. But then also not being able to speak Armenian to gossip on people. Then we had to switch to Arabic.
Was there any, was it everything you imagined, Armenia? Or was there any disappointment or anything better than you expected?
The food was better than I expected. The general vibe was not as expected. It was I don't know how to explain it. it's very shiny in everyone's brain. Like Armenia is beautiful and shiny and sunny and not dirty and all that stuff. It was like more gray than what I had imagined, more Soviet.
Fair. But clearly you still loved it enough to come back.
Of course,
many
it's
times
Armenia.
and now live here. And so you moved here. Why did you choose Armenia when you left Lebanon?
It's my home. It's my second home. It's just the easiest to integrate into. The things that you would have to do to integrate into anywhere else as an expat are 1,000 times harder. I know the country, I know the language. It's my country. It's my people. So it's the first thought.
So after Birthright, what did you do? You stayed here?
Yes, I stayed here. I started working in a marketing agency as an SEO specialist, and I do that up until now.
Nice. And what do you love most about living here?
I love just being able to speak Armenian. I think in Armenian, so everything in my brain is in Armenian, so I just love being able to express myself, even if the dialects are different, which is fine. I don't know. I love when people are happy that I'm a Lebanese Armenian living here. And I love my community, my friends, the bajillion different diasporan Armenians that I've met over the years.
What challenges do you face living here?
Can I say misogyny? Yeah, the society is a bit not as advanced as I'm used to living around in terms of being more patriarchal, and more judgmental than I'm used to. I don't feel as free to do normal whatever I want things or to dress how I want and things like that, but I've gotten used to it over the years. Also Armenia has changed more as well, like as comparing 2019 Armenia to 2023 Armenia, the society is becoming more tolerant and becoming more accepting of a lot of things. I think the only thing that is like challenging for me is like the looks you get on the street, and people don't smile as often as I want them to.
So Araz, you lived in Spain for a little bit. What was were you involved with the Armenian community there, or if so, what was that like to be Armenian there?
I've lived in Spain for a year. Before going, the first thing I did was research things in Madrid that have to do with the Armenians. I found an Armenian restaurant. I found an Armenian Sunday school called Mashtots or Maestro Mashtots, I don't remember, and the location of the embassy. I contacted the school and I was like, hey, do you need anything? Like, I'm coming. They were like, no, you're welcome to visit. Which is cute. I never was visited. The only thing... So there are a lot of Armenians in Spain, but not in Madrid. There are a lot in Valencia, in Alicante. And I think some in the north, but I'm not sure. I was particularly sad for being in Spain during April 24 because we don't have a big enough community of Armenians to do anything. And I was watching the march that was happening in Lebanon on live on Facebook, and I was like, it's the first time in my whole life that I've been sitting at home not doing anything on April 24. I couldn't do anything by myself. I even thought about messaging the restaurant and being like, hey, are you not doing anything? But I didn't. But everyone in my class knew what Armenia was. They knew about the genocide. They knew about Artsakh. And they were all like concerned if something is happening or not. And my professor, the first couple of weeks, I hand in my exam and he's like, what's your name? I'm like, Araz, Guidanian. And he's like, Yan, I know Armenians. I'm like, oh, how? He's like, Jivan, the guy who plays Duduk, I know him. I love him. I'm like, oh my god, someone that's completely Spanish with zero relation to Armenian knows Jivan. I'm like, okay, this is great. We made it.
Were you able to observe, I know it was just a year, but were you able to observe anything about like Spain or Europe that you think made there be less of a strong Armenian community?
I think we can do more. Like, honestly, I was disappointed. One Armenian restaurant in all of Madrid. Like, we can do more. We can, like, we have a Khachkar memorial thing in Valencia for the victims of the genocide. I think it's either a Khachkar or a statue. I don't really remember. We can do so much more. Like, there are Armenians there. They're not diasporan Armenians. They're mostly Armenians from Armenia who have went there as expats. But we can do so much more. We can have an impact in the community. Spanish people are welcoming to the Armenians. I think we need to, the people in Spain need to work harder to make our voices heard. There are, like, for example, it's not like there isn't any. There was one, I don't know what he was, a parliament member or something, during the 2020 Artsakh war. He was, like, protesting in front of a building and saying things in the parliament, but not as impactful as I would like it to be. I kept telling my dad that we should have an agump in Madrid, and then I'd be willing to take over it.
Do you think, and I know you haven't lived in other diaspora communities, but do you think that there's something that Armenians around the world can learn from Lebanese Armenians? Other diaspora Armenians can learn from Lebanese Armenians?
How to be intense. No, I don't. I think all the diaspora communities have done a lot, in respectfully, as much as they could in the communities that they are in. Maybe just, like, force people to learn Armenian more. Do not make everything accessible in the language they feel comfortable in. Make them learn Armenian.
I know I've asked you this question in different ways, but why is it important that people learn Armenian and keep it?
Okay. So when you know Armenian, first of all, you can communicate your thoughts in Armenian, which is a very beautiful thing to have as an Armenian, being able to speak to other Armenians in our language. It opens doors for you to be able to read Armenian literature. That is very important. In general, like, to have the access to read, to understand not only literature, songs, dances, what they mean. They would be easier to, you would grasp it more if you know the language. Everyone can translate, of course it can be translated, but learning these things in that language, I don't know, I love knowing and speaking Armenian, and I love it when I speak Armenian to my friends.
Araz, you alluded to earlier the situation in Lebanon. What is it like, and does it affect your decision, thoughts, ideas about going back?
The situation in Lebanon is very different to what we lived when like it was around 2014. I always say, like, 2014 to 2018, it was the best years we've had in Lebanon. Maybe end of 2019 as well. Like, everything was okay, was booming. Everyone was, like, normal work, and Lebanon has a lot of difficulties, but, like, during those years it was really fun to be in Lebanon, and anybody I say this to agrees. Like, it was like we were peaking. And unfortunately, after that, it just started going downhill and down and down and down. It never really stopped, and everyone was like, okay, this is rock bottom. Then it started getting worse and worse. Now the inflation is insane. Everything is very expensive. I am very sad for Lebanon. When I left Lebanon, my emotions towards Lebanon were hatred and never wanting to go back. I didn't go back for a year and a half. I left it being disgusted by the country. I didn't care about the Armenian community. I didn't care about Lebanon. I couldn't care less. But then the explosion happened in 2020, and the only thing keeping me related, like, to Lebanon was my parents. And for a split second, when you think about your relatives living in a country that you hate, but then you can lose them at any second because of the country, it made it worse for me. Like, I was like, this is insane. Why would you stay there? Please leave. I blamed my parents my whole life for not leaving during the war in 2006 when Hezbollah and Israel were having a war in the south of Lebanon, which was my first encounter with war ever. And my dad, the first thing he said was, Lebanon is not a hotel, it's our home country, we don't leave it when it's bad, and we come back when it's good. And I was like, I really don't care, I just want to leave. All my friends are leaving, and they're posting on Facebook that they're in Canada. Can we go? He was like, no, Araz, this is our country. I'm like, why? So yeah, I always had the idea of not being in Lebanon. I have one uncle from my mom's side and my uncle from my dad's side who have left Lebanon when they were my age when I wanted to leave. All of the families have members like that in Lebanon. So yeah, but then in 2021, I realized that I missed it a lot. I don't know what happened. I went back. I go back for vacation all the time. I go back every couple of months. I would go back on the long run if I have a stable job. That is the only thing, like, I have established here a good, like, people know me, people know the services that I can provide SEO wise, and I would have to rebuild that over there, which is kind of like, it's gonna take a lot of time for me. I think that's the only thing that's stopping me, is maybe also all my friends left Lebanon. I would go back there and be alone, which is not nice.
For the most part, did they come to Armenia also? They've gone everywhere.
They've gone everywhere. Most of them came to Armenia. I've made a lot of good friendships in Armenia as well. But yeah, there's like 1 or 2 people that I know that I can hang out with in Lebanon now versus like 50 people that I knew 5 years ago.
Could you, if you want, briefly tell us more about 2006 and how that affected your life?
Yeah, of course. So in the summer of 2006, we had just moved in to a new house. 10 days later, a war starts. It's my first encounter with war. I have no idea what's going on. Everyone is like, the adults are, so at this point I was like 14. The adults are talking about bunkers. They're talking about hiding. And I'm like, okay, like, this is seriously a war? My dad didn't let us leave the house. We were registered to go to summer school, and he called us one day and he was like, you come back home now and you don't get out of the house. I didn't know the seriousness of the situation. I was like, no, we're going to the pool tomorrow. He's like, you're not going anywhere. So we stayed in all of that summer. We just played in the little like parking that we had under the building. The only places we would go were supermarkets or my cousin's house, or they would come to my house. My cousin, the oldest one after me, stopped eating and talking during the whole war. She was like nothing. And it hadn't affected me as much up until I saw her, and I was like, oh damn, I should probably have that reaction. So after seeing her like that, every time Israel would bomb the south, I could hear it. I would wake my parents up, and be like, they hit us again. I hated every second of that summer. At some point, it was that we could see when they bombed. I could see it from my balcony, and my dad would be calling my mom, be like, come look, they bombed it. And then when I would run to see, he'd be like, you go back inside, because of the effect that it had on me. And then all of us were like, okay, maybe school won't start then, because it was the end of September already, and we were like, okay, great, it's war, we can't go to school. And then they stopped. They announced a ceasefire, and that's how it stopped. But I hated that summer a lot. We couldn't leave the house. My dad wouldn't let us go anywhere. The supermarket was our, like, field trip. I don't know. Shortages of every kind. Everyone buying things in bulk.
And you explained this a little bit already, but why do you think after, the Armenian community in Lebanon and Lebanese people in general have gone through so much over the years that they stay there?
Yeah.
And you were saying before, it's not only because some might not have another place to go, but it's also a choice. So why do you think that is?
Because it is your community at the end of the day that it's built and established. You've established your life around it. Are involved in, and if all of us leave, then what happens? The Lebanese Armenian and the Syrian Armenian communities have faced like a lot of the consequences of what's happening in the country, and we've become weaker, and we've now have less impact on the daily life and in general in Lebanon, politically and everything, also in Syria. But I don't know. I wouldn't want the Lebanese Armenian community to not exist. But at the same time, I don't understand why people stay.
What would we as an Armenian community globally lose if we lost the Armenian Lebanese community?
What would we lose? A lot of Armenian language teachers, Armenian dance teachers, musicians, and Armenian radio, Armenian newspapers that are still being published every day. What else? The schools that we have, and the education that those schools give. The food, the Western Armenian Lebanese mixed food. I mean, of course we would take it with us wherever we go, but it's not the same. And the agumps. Yeah.
Here in Armenia, you said you interact with a lot of different diasporan Armenians, and this is not a question of comparison to say one is better than the other, but what have you seen are qualities that you gained from your Lebanese Armenian community that maybe are absent in your other diasporan Armenian friends?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, not comparatively and not judgmental and not anything else, but the belonging I feel to Armenia, I think, is more than when I meet people who haven't grown up the way I have, in the community, the impact of the community. For example, I would literally be okay to die for Armenia. I'm fine with it. Not everyone feels that way. Or I don't know, any sacrifice that doesn't need to be made, I would make it. I have grown up to think about putting Armenia above even myself. Armenia and Artsakh. Because the education that I've received and everything around me, okay, my life is very important, but to preserve my Armenianness, to preserve Armenia, to preserve Artsakh are more important, because I feel like I have a duty for the future generations and for everyone to come to keep all of this, just like the way the people before me have kept it.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Araz. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing you here now, and also facing the Armenian community in Lebanon?
Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge facing me here now is the situation regarding Artsakh and the Armenian borders and everything. It's insane, and I would want to feel powerful enough to know that if I do something, I'll have an impact, or like to change the course of what's going on. Forget politically, forget everything else, but like I wish that we as a community, or as like friends, as a friend group, or had a power to change the way people don't really care about what's going on. That makes me the saddest in Armenia, is that I feel like some people are very nonchalant or like indifferent. Okay, we lost Artsakh. Not all of them, not even most of them, but like just the fact that this exists is very sad to me. And the future of Armenians in Lebanon, I hope it's better than the past couple of years that we've lived, but I think it's unfortunately slowly becoming less and less people there. There's no one is to blame for what's happening. Everyone needs to, live a good life. But yeah, I think we're becoming less in numbers in Lebanon, and it's sad. But I hope that some of the people who have left come back. Which I don't think might happen. But yeah, that's it. I don't have any other opinions regarding the future of Lebanon in general is very unknown, and the Armenians in Lebanon are very dependent on that. So.
Well, you've answered it, but what do you hope for the future of Armenia and the future of, different question, Lebanese Armenians?
The future of Armenia, I want it to be stronger. I want it to be more capable, more confident, and less reliant on external help and validation, and I want us to be able to support ourselves in every possible aspect of a country without, to work on ourselves to be strong enough to do that. Whether it's the economy, it's the army, it's anything. And the future of Armenians in Lebanon, I like I said before, I hope it's better than the couple of years that they've lived. I hope we get to, keep what we have now as Lebanese Armenians, and just not suffer.
To the extent that you've thought about it or can think about it, how do you envision teaching your children the things that you learned as an Armenian growing up in Lebanon, even if you're not in Lebanon?
Yeah. I would for sure teach them Arabic. Like the Arabic things that we normally use. The food. And I would tell them about, we talked about the April 24 marches, and I would tell them about, how when a Turkish president or a diplomat would visit Lebanon, we would go and protest against them as a form of showing Lebanese people that we're there. That our schools would take us to any protest or anything that would have to do with us showing our Armenianness or expressing our dislike towards what is happening with, for example, the relations with Turkey and things like that. One time we were in 12th grade and Erdogan was visiting Lebanon, and we all decided to escape school to go and protest with the people. We didn't want his presence there. And our teacher comes and she knows that we're planning on this. And she's like, listen, we'll pay for your taxis. Don't put money from your own pockets. Just go and come back at this hour. We're like, are you really letting us escape from school? She's like, yeah, go protest. This is the type of spirit that I want to teach my kids. It's some things come before other things, and the priorities that you have as an Armenian sometimes might be different than your other friends that you know that aren't Armenian, but that's totally okay. And yeah, just accept yourself as Armenian as you can, and that would make your Armenianness very... No, wait, that doesn't sound right. Accept yourself as Armenian as you can, and then make sure everyone else knows about it.
I love it. It's beautiful. Araz, can you tell us about the role that your dad held in the government while you were living in Lebanon?
So my dad has been an active member of the political party that's ARF since a very long time. And at some point he had the opportunity to be a minister in the Lebanese government. It's the only position, like there's one seat per, no.
Wait, sometimes there are two seats if they're from a different political party, but when your dad was minister,
he was the only one. Yeah. At the time, he was the only Armenian minister in the government. He was the minister of tourism. And there's a very funny anecdote revolving around him being a minister. So he was on a TV show, and the lady asked him, do you prefer... So it was a segment that's this or that, and he had to choose one. And the host was like, Lebanon or Armenia. And without thinking for a split second, he said Armenia. And that's what most people do, right? If they ask us in Lebanon which one you prefer, we say Armenia because we are in Lebanon. And then she said Turkey or Israel, and he's like, none of them. But the fact that he replied with Armenia caused so much controversy that the people who are Sunni in Tripoli, that's the north of Lebanon, that support Erdogan, wanted him to resign because he prefers Armenia over Lebanon. So he calls the prime minister and he says, I'll resign. I stand by what I said. If you want me to resign, I'll resign. And the prime minister says, no, it's fine. It's okay. So yeah, that was a fun anecdote revolving him. He was minister for 4 years, I think. And then the government changed. So yeah, and in general, the impressions of he's left on people are very positive. And that's it.
And you said earlier that you felt at times like a minority as an Armenian in Lebanon, but having your dad as one of the only represented Armenian positions in government, did that affect at all how you felt as an Armenian in Lebanon?
No. You know why? Because I would just tell people that my dad is a minister and they wouldn't know who he was. So I would have to tell them his name, and then they'd be like, oh, he's Armenian. Like, yeah. It didn't change. It just, it's still like people weren't keeping that in mind as much as they would keep other ministers' names in mind. But yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Okay. Thanks, Araz.